Hey everyone, just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to the show. We're thrilled that you're here and enjoying the content. This podcast is completely free for you, but if you'd ever consider supporting the show, we truly appreciate it. One way you can do that is by using our affiliate links. These are links to products and services that we've mentioned on the show. And if you make a purchase through one of them, we might earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. It's a great way to show your love for the podcast and help us keep creating awesome content.
Blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates, and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Thank you to all of our subscribers, new and old. I appreciate all of the support that we have received from this wonderful community. You can listen to us via Apple, Spotify, and everywhere that podcasts are available. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not yet, and stay tuned. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we are sharing our own personal experiences. When I started thinking about doing something for the cleft community, I've shared this in my first episode with Giselle, but I used to have a journaling business, right? I had my regular 9-to-5 corporate job, but I'm a writer, and so I wanted to do something separate to that. And so I had a journaling business, and then it was doing well, and as well as it could be. And I was really passionate about that. And I really wanted to move that forward. But then Giselle entered my life. Giselle is my daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. And when she entered my life, I did not know that she was going to have a cleft palate. And so it was really challenging for our family. And I felt really alone during that time. But I found community in like these cleft groups and like these, after going through this scary Google and searching all these things that told me all these crazy stories, I finally got to the quote unquote real moms, the everyday moms that were dealing with these issues, that had overcome issues with their child's cleft. And so for me, I felt like it took too much digging for me to find people that were like me. And so I'm an avid podcast listener. I listen to podcasts all the time. And when I searched for a cleft podcast, I was surprised. I didn't really find anything that was like current. And then I dug some more, and I looked on Spotify, and I did see that we do have another cleft podcast, Every Smile Has a Story. And I was really excited to see that. But I'm like, I wanted to start a podcast for cleft moms, and I became really passionate about doing this work. And so when I saw Every Smile Has a Story, not only was I super excited that someone was doing work in this lane because it was much needed, I was also excited that there was someone else that was doing it so that in the market, so that people knew that there was a need for this, right? That people needed to hear these stories from individuals that are affected by the cleft journey, and also just support for moms. I am thrilled today to have Cassidy. Cassidy is a dedicated 8-year volunteer for Operation Smile, Miss America teen title holder with the Service Initiative of Cleft Condition Awareness, and produces a cleft representation podcast titled Every Smile Has a Story. Her biggest passion is making the world a better place, one smile at a time, and is honored to work alongside those in the Cleft community. Welcome, Cassidy.
Hello, Laura. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to get to chat with you today.
It's so wonderful to see you. So I had the opportunity to be a guest on Every Smile Has a Story. I was so honored because Cassidy has had some really heavy hitters on the podcast, some really well-known faces. And so, yeah, it's wonderful to be among those that she's spoken to. Where are you from, Cassidy?
I am from Williamsburg, Virginia.
Okay, so this is really funny as well because I'm from Newport News, Virginia, which is the city that is next to Williamsburg, Virginia. And so we call the same area home. And it was so funny because when I reached out to Cassidy, I actually reached out to her, or I can't remember if I reached out to you or you reached out to me anyway. I saw, or I think I followed you or something, but I was following your Instagram. And then I'm like, oh, this is so great. We have like another podcast and we can do like collabs and stuff. And I was just so thrilled about that. And I was scrolling and I saw it said Miss Newport News Hampton, and I'm like, wait, she's from Hampton Roads. She's from the area. Oh my goodness.
Yes. It's so funny because I actually represent the Hampton-Newport News area as my title for the Miss Virginia Teen competition. And so I think that is such a fun and just a little silly coincidence that worked out like that.
Yeah, I was so happy to see that too. I don't know if someone, I guess maybe I'm old, but seeing someone connected to your home is, oh my goodness, I feel like we're sisters. Okay, so I love everything that you're doing for the Cleft community. I wanted to talk a little bit about how did you come to do this work?
Yes. So I actually get this question all the time because people are like, oh, like you're not Cleft affected or you don't know someone personally like growing up that was Cleft affected. And so I was a competitive dancer for 10 years. And my studio, we would put on these annual benefit shows where all the proceeds would go to a nonprofit, Operation Smile. And my first year, I had no idea what this organization was. I had no idea what a cleft condition was. And I remember standing backstage in my tap shoes, like, getting ready to perform. And they played a video for the audience describing what Operation Smile was and the incredible work that they did throughout the world. And I just remember thinking, some of these kids are my age and they have this facial difference and they don't have these opportunities to get the education they deserve, to have access to safe surgery. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to do everything in my power to help these kids. And that's so really how I learned about Operation Smile and got into the Cleft community. And then about a year later, I was getting into the Miss America Teen organization, and every contestant has a platform. It's an issue that they care about or something that they want to advocate for. And I remember brainstorming, like, oh, like, what should I do? And somebody's like, hey, you wanted to get more involved with Operation Smile. Why don't you make that your platform? And I was like, that's brilliant. And so I immediately got started working with that. It started off very small because I was still new. And so I started a club at my school, and that's really where it began. And now we are here today.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you've shared with me a little bit about your mission work with Operation Smile. So I guess what's the process, or what do you do to get connected to Operation Smile work? As you mentioned, right? You you created this club and obviously it's expanded to much more. How did you take those first steps to actually really get in there and be able to contact people and touch people touch lives that the Cleft journey that have been affected by the Cleft journey?
Yeah, so my dance teacher, she actually helps get me in contact with the director of student programs with Operation Smile, and even the founders themselves. And so once I started connecting with them, they taught me about so many different opportunities like the student council operation has and their international leadership conferences they hold every summer. And so I applied to become a council member, was so lucky to get that position. And then she's like, hey, why don't you come with us to Miami this summer for a leadership conference? And it was so amazing. They have a big Operation Smile headquarters in Virginia Beach, actually. It's the home of the whole entire international community. And once I toured, they have a little interactive museum. I actually got to meet the founder of Operation Smile, Kathy McGee, and I was talking to her, explaining to her how I got started my work, and she's like, hey, would you actually like to be a speaker at our conference? And oh my gosh, I was fangirling the whole time. And so after this conference, I just immediately fell in love with the organization beyond imagine. My heart was already at such was so full because of this organization, and it truly just burst for this conference. The conference led me to stop dancing because a girl was speaking and she said, my nonprofit is my sport. And I took those words to heart, and this is something that makes me happier. This helping people and doing work like this is what I want to put all my time and energy to. And then, so my junior year of high school, I was really trying to do even more with the organization, and I applied for a surgical program. And I was so nervous. It was a big application process. We had to have all these requirements, a bunch of essays. And I remember just getting so excited when I got the letter that I was getting to go to Paraguay. And we had to do a lot of training, some language training, some cultural difference training to just really get us prepared for what we would see, the interactions we would have. And truly that trip, I think about it every day. It was the most incredible, life-changing, eye-opening experience that one could have. And every interaction and memory that I was able to experience there has inspired every next step of what I do with nonprofit work and all of the projects here today.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that. So how long were you in Paraguay?
I was there for about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you go, I've always been curious about when you're there, where do you lay your head at night? What's the interaction with the patients and that whole process? I imagine it's not the most comfortable thing, right? You're in a new country. And was that your first time traveling international?
It was, yes. It was my first time out of the country, and the parents don't go with us. So you're going by yourself. I was very lucky because there was actually one of my other girls that I knew from the council from Virginia. So we flew the 15 hours. But yeah, so you get there, and every mission experience is different just based on what country you're going to, who you're with. But Operation Smile has a clinic in Paraguay, actually, that is there year-round for the patients to come back to. So we stayed in the main city. We actually had our own little villa that all 4 of us got to stay in. It was one big sleepover. We would just hang out. We were bonded for life. We talk every day. But yeah, so your first day is screening day. And this is where you meet all the patients for the first time. Everyone shares the story of you're in a bus and you're pulling up to the stop and you just see hundreds and hundreds of families waiting in this line, waiting for the gates to be opened. I hadn't seen anyone with a cleft condition that hadn't been fixed. And all of a sudden there is hundreds of people holding their babies with luggage behind them because they've traveled 12 hours on foot or by bus to get here. They're all pushing to the front of the line hoping that they can get seen. And then so you go into screening, and the process is incredible how they do it, but they have all these medical volunteers. None of them are paid either, which is crazy that I learned. They're all volunteers, and they're going through the process of, is this child healthy enough? Has this child had surgery before? And so what we did, us cohorts, our job was to play with the kids. We all brought sticker books and little activities, and they would just swarm you and try to play with these books or get crayons. And this is where you got to really interact with the patients and their families. I remember meeting this one little boy. He had a very severe cleft lip and palate, and I was connecting with his mom and him, and then we were allowed to ask these parents if we could follow them through their screening process. And this mom so kindly said yes, and so I got to follow them all through the process. And then we had a day in between where we actually got to go on a safari in this jungle in Paraguay, which was so fun. But then the next week is all surgery days. So you're going to the clinic every day. You're playing with the kids. You're assisting the medical volunteers with any placing of records or filing. You're helping shake medicine bottles or make no-nos for the kids and stuff like that. And then all four of us got to go into the operating room at different times and observe a surgery, which is just like unbelievable. And then I remember we were like leaving our villa to go to surgery, and my leader was like, "Oh my gosh, Cassidy, like I just got a text that your little boy is going into surgery." And so I was so excited. I got to put on my little pink scrub set and go into the operating room, and they allowed me to stand on a step stool right behind the surgeon. We had scrubbed in. Every protocol was followed, of course, but they let me stand on a step stool and like truly just watch. They did everything. They were so kind in explaining everything to me because I had no idea really what was going on, like all the medical stuff. They explained everything to me. I had a doctor draw pictures for me of what they were doing, and I still have it hanging on my wall, actually. But truly just being in the operating room with these people, just getting to stand there and watch a kid that you formed a connection with, their life be changed right before your eyes is just truly the most, there's just not enough words to describe it. It's the most incredible. And then like when he woke up, they woke him up in the operating room. Like I was the first person he saw, and it was just like so comforting. And then the part that really hit me hard was they're like, okay, like you can go get his mom. And so I went and I got his mom from where she was sitting in the waiting room, and I brought her into little post-op. And I remember they're like, okay, don't cry unless the parent starts crying, and then it's okay. So you don't upset them. And so I was like, okay. I'm like trying to hold back. And then she starts crying, like hugging him. And then I just like, and we just sat there. We did. There was no talking. It was just purely, we just sat there, and she was so excited to see his new look. They had actually taken a piece of his nose bone and put it into his palate to repair it.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Wow.
And an anesthesiologist actually snapped a picture of all of us in the operating room, and it's so fun.
Oh my goodness. Cassidy shared this story with me before as well. And I guess I almost brings me to tears. Like I'm just hearing you say also them telling you like don't cry only if she cries, and I'm like,
yeah,
what? I'm not gonna be able to control myself here. But yeah, what a special, incredible moment to witness. I don't know. And then also, do they like warn you like, hey, are you gonna be okay to watch the surgery? Because
yes,
okay, because I'm thinking out loud really right now because I'm like, could I have watched it? But it's my daughter, so I have a different.
Yeah.
But then I'm also thinking if it was someone else, could I? I don't know.
Yes. I have never been like super queasy about blood and everything. And I knew I was going to be fine. But then actually sitting there, I did have to sit down at one point just because I got a little dizzy. So in this clinic, there's only like one to two operating rooms. And so there's two surgeries happening at once in this one room. And so there's 50 medical personnel in there. Like the lights are so bright, like everything's moving. It's a little smaller. And so I think it was just like the excitement, the adrenaline mixed with that. I'm also a very picky eater, so I didn't eat a lot of the Paraguay food. So I was living off of like granola bars. I think that might have played a factor, but they have really good bread that I enjoyed.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm just thinking about that. Like because I'm also like, I pride myself. Like I actually eat everything. Like I'm like fine. But then this is side note unrelated. They went, I had a mole removed, and I think I get like kind of queasier because I'm getting a little older, but I had a mole removed like last year. And I'm like, I went in and I'm like, I'm fine. And it was on my leg. And they did it like in office, like they just they numbed it and then they scalpeled it. And then I like all of a sudden I'm like, I don't feel too well. And they were like, what? And I'm like, I don't feel good. They're like, sit down. They didn't want me to pass out. And so I'm like,
yes.
And they're like, thank you so much for letting us know. We don't want you to pass out. And so I was surprised that I reacted that way. It's a weird feeling.
It is. The surgeons were like, you have to tell us if you're going to get sick, because also this boy's surgery was very extensive. Usually a cleft lip and palate surgery only takes about 45 minutes. This was like a 3-hour procedure. And so I remember being on the steps and I was like, okay, I need to get off before but no, yeah, they were great. And then once I was better, they just happily let me back in.
Oh, that's wonderful. So did they do lip and palate repair for him at the same time?
They did not. He had a bilateral cleft lip as well, and they had actually already fixed part of the lip. The lip was actually closed, but his teeth stuck out, so they definitely needed to do some more repair there. But this was more of the palate surgery, I believe.
Gotcha. Okay. And I have so many questions about this. So the families so they're year round, but they're there, is it because they have a specific day that they like see families?
Yes. So these surgical programs, screening day, they will literally post up like posters like around cities. They'll do infographics and all this stuff so that people can know. And so people can come once they see these, open to anyone who can get there. And so these families will travel and they'll be seen, and they try to take as many patients as they can. I think there was like 250 people, and we did 83 surgeries during that week. So unfortunately, some people are turned away just because maybe their child isn't healthy enough, they don't weigh enough, or they've been in contact with a disease recently that prohibits them from getting that care right now.
Yeah.
But yes, so then once a child is selected to receive surgery, they're contacted and they're given a specific date to come to the surgery. So I remember saying goodbye to the family on screening day because you don't know if you're ever going to see them again. And then so happy to see them again at surgery, but then after that, you know that you'll never see them again. I am so lucky because I'm good friends with the director of the Paraguay clinic, and she mentioned that the little boy was coming back to the clinic for like a checkup, and I got to write a letter to him and his family, and then they wrote me one back. So I have a little pen pal.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, do they write you in Spanish?
They did. Oh my goodness. So I've taken Spanish for about 6 years, but the high school language departments are not that great. And going into the program, the language was definitely one of the most difficult barriers just because you want to have meaningful conversations. Sometimes you're waiting with these families for an hour and you don't just want to ask them like, oh, hello, ¿cómo estás? You don't just want to ask them that. You want to get to know them and hear about their experiences. I remember one lady asked me, I learned that she was asking for medicine and I thought she was asking me to go get ice cream for the kid. So that was definitely hard. But luckily we have wonderful translators that are there helping. And a lot of the medical staff itself is bilingual and speaks many languages. And so they're great in helping out. But yes, translating, Google Translate was my best friend that week. And I did have to get the letter translated.
Wow. That's so beautiful though, that you can at least make that attempt to have like communication and stuff like that. Do you know how many surgeries they do per day? Or is it like, because if they're doing 2 in 1, there must be like a bunch of little clinics that they're able to operate or operating rooms, right?
I think there's about 2 operating rooms, and as many of them are like that 45-minute to an hour range. I think they do about 20 to 25 per day, which is insane.
Yeah. And do they like so palate repair is really tough. I think most cleft parents would say like it's tougher than the lip in terms of the healing process and stuff. Do the doctors like follow their care? Do they stay there to watch them? Like what's the process?
This is something that actually surprised me the most. I don't know how I thought it would work. But so after a child comes in, they come in the morning of, they get in their gown, and then they're walked to the operating room. And after surgery, they schedule it to where there's only 1 to 2 children in post-op at one time. There's a big post-op room. And then all the patients are taken into this one room. And so there's 15 to 20 beds in this one room, and all these kids are there after surgery. I think this was one of the most difficult things, as these children are all in pain. The parents are exhausted. They've been up all night, so they're all like crying, and the parents are trying to calm them down, and everyone is trying to give them medicine, juice, like clothes, like all these things. And then so usually they'll spend the night at the clinic, and then they go home the next morning. Or sometimes, if they're well enough, I believe they like left. If their surgery was super early, they would leave later that evening.
Yeah, that's pretty standard protocol. Like here in the United States, we went home. Yeah, the next day, like around Giselle was Giselle did very well, so they let her go in the morning. But yeah, I guess like they assume they send them with some instructions and stuff and no-nos
Yes,
and
yes.
medicine and
We actually, us cohorts, we pack smile bags and it's like all these different dental supplies and stuff. I had actually done a little partnership with Gum, the toothbrush brand. I reached out to them and they sent over 500 dental products, like little kids'
wow.
toothbrushes, little toothpaste and stuff. And so when trying to fit that all in my suitcase was a little difficult, but once we got there, we got to pack them all and then actually give them to the kids with their instructions, their medicine, and like all that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I love hearing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's so great. I feel like I had another question about the clinic, but it slipped my mind. So let's talk about your Miss America teen title. So I love this. So when I was younger, I was going to go the pageant route, but I was too shy. I just couldn't do it. I did a Future Miss program or something like that. It was like a pageant. And
Yeah.
I think I had to be like 7 or 8 years old. And the way that they did it was like you walked on stage, you did like everything in alphabetical order. So my last name is Arroyo. So I was A. So I was always first. Like I was the
Oh
first to go
no.
on stage. I was the first to do my talent or whatever, the whole thing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so I was a nervous wreck. I think that I had the personality at home, but I wasn't like ready. And I could also sing at that age, so I would perform and things like that. But I just wasn't ready for that big of a stage. I crumbled. And no practice. I didn't what were they thinking? Anyway, so how did you get into this work, into Miss America?
Yes. So my dance studio, the owner is actually holds a leadership position in the Miss Virginia board. And so many of the girls would compete. And I remember starting to have this want to do a pageant. And then the Miss Virginia team came in at that time and talked to us. And I was like, I want to do it. And so I did my first pageant. So how Miss America teen works is like you have a local pageant for your area, then you have your state, and then you have nationals if you didn't get that far. And so I did my local, I won, and then I went to Miss Virginia, and I have done that process twice and placed in the top 10 at Miss Virginia. And it's definitely been such a wonderful learning experience. This will be my third time trying for the title of Miss Virginia's teen. And I cannot say enough good words about the Miss America. It's opportunity now. Truly, to me, this is not about a crown or a sash. It's about this platform to advocate for cleft kids. And so they say crowns open doors, and that truly is such a factual statement because I've had so many wonderful opportunities to go places and meet people because of this organization. And also like the personal growth that I've learned. I always loved public speaking. I didn't know how to do it. And now like I'm able to the next day be like, someone's like, hey, can you come speak to 500 elementary school kids? And it's like, yeah, sure. You learn so much about yourself and how to present yourself, how to have goals, how to network, how to communicate. I've been able, like you mentioned, to connect with so many wonderful people, even some high-level celebrities on my podcast because of the networking skills that I've gained from this organization. And because I haven't won, I've learned how to accept failure, reevaluate myself, what can I do better, and know that to never give up. This fall, I was wondering if I should recompete again as I'm going to the University of Alabama, so I'll be going out of state. And I really just remember thinking, I made a promise to these kids when I was in Paraguay that I would go home and I would do everything I can to get them the care, the resources, and the support that they deserve. And I'm like, I haven't fulfilled that yet. And so I need to do everything in my power. So here we are. We're about a month away from the competition. And this year I have a really different mindset. I'm going in with a goal to, of course, win. Everyone goes with the goal to win, but to really just share about Operation Smile. That is my main goal, to talk about them, to have more people know and to show them that this is a cause that needs supporting. I remember my onstage question in front of the entire 1,000 people audience was, tell us about your cleft awareness podcast. And so even just getting to share what it was in front of people was such a win to me. And so I'm very excited to go back and get to share more about them.
Yeah, I love that. I get chills like listening to this because
you.
seriously, it's just being able to use your platform to just send such a powerful message, and then also just your inner self wanting to like fulfill that mission that you've told yourself, right? Hey, that you told yourself and others, but it just requires a different type of like motivation within to continue to face adversity in that way. And you haven't won the title, but you still want to fulfill a whole different purpose.
Yeah.
Not, of course, you say everybody wants to win, right? You want to win.
Yeah.
But you have a deeper goal, and I think that's really special. So you compete in the fall. Is there anything that we can do? Like, I will go outside with signs if you need me to.
That is like a great question. So we're doing a fundraiser for the American Heart Association, and there's a link, and I would be happy to send you the link if you'd be interested to just post on your Instagram story.
Yes, of course. We'll put it in the show notes.
Oh my gosh, something I actually have sitting right here with me. So I don't know, are you religious at all?
Yeah, I'm a Christian. I grew up Christian.
Yeah. My mom and I were going through this memorabilia box the other day, and we found this essay that I did in 2015, so I was 9. And it's called The Best Part of Me. And it's about how my mouth was my favorite part because I could communicate, I could eat, and it even says smiling makes me happy. And I found it. And first of all, I was just like, whoa, this is such a cool little example of like how God led me to my purpose working in a community that's all about smiling. And then actually the picture I drew, I didn't realize, but it is the exact cover of my podcast, which is, I don't know if you've ever... Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen like the little image, but I did draw the smile to make it represent a cleft. And when I found that, I was like, they're identical. And I was so shocked. I was in complete shock, but I just think it's so heartwarming to know that I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I think making those connections are really important because it's like all these signs that at the end come together. Oh, wow. It makes you feel like, oh, this is not a coincidence. Like I'm
Exactly.
really doing God's work here and just serving the community in a really much needed and unique way. So one of the things that I noticed about you as well is that you're so well spoken, you're so polished, you're so ready, you're so confident.
Thank you.
I think that like for myself, as I explained just a few minutes ago, like I can, when I was younger, I would crumble under pressure, and now I'm in my like mid 30s, and I have found a part of you when you get older, you just don't care anymore. But also I'm coming into myself in a way that like I just want to be authentic, and I want to like deliver authentic messages, and I want to connect with people in that way. And just because when you're inauthentic, it creates so much work. You're just you're just not being yourself. And how do you prepare for Cassidy as a brand, right? Cassidy as you doing this work, as being Miss America, as doing your podcast. What does it take? A weird question. What does it take to be Cassidy?
I think especially over the last 3 years being a part of this organization and going through the process, there is a lot that goes into it that people don't realize behind the scenes. It's 2-page essays on your brand. It's so much paperwork. It's media appearances. It's all of this process. And in that, you find yourself. You find, what am I passionate about? The last 2 years, I went into the competition thinking that I had to fit into this mold of what Miss Virginia Teen looked like. I looked at previous ones and I was like, oh, I need to dress like them. I need to do this appearance that they did. But this year, I'm creating the mold that I think a Miss Virginia Teen should look like. And so really, I've just learned how to balance. I think that's one of the most important things as well. I am still a high school student. I have my personal passions like Miss America and Operation Smile, theater, all these cheerleading, all these things. But then I still have to go to school, get good grades. And so learning how to balance, learning how to still take time for yourself, but then also just being ambitious, I think is one of the best things that has helped me along the years. When I'm inspired by something, I just jump to the biggest thing. I want to meet the people, I want to have the experiences, and I want to just reach the highest level of opportunity. And so I think just learning how to do that has really helped me solidify who I am. and really just training a lot, putting in the work, the time, and the effort, and knowing that even if it hasn't paid off in the exact way that I intended it to, that I have gained so much more, and that maybe it will pay off in the way that I hope it to in the future.
Yes, let's put life into that. Let's speak into
Put it in the universe.
Yes, God, hear us. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I think that a lot of us who have daughters as well, let me speak for myself. We have concerns about where the world is going and things, but there's nothing new under the sun. I try to always tell parents, when I was growing up, I'm sure our moms and families panicked a little bit too, right? Like the world is like changing. There's technology. There's all these things. So I know that as we evolve, as the world evolves, we evolve. And I'm always seeking how to make my daughter a better person, a productive citizen, a benevolent child. Like I want her to be motivated in life, to love life. I think that's a challenge, which is so ironic to say, but I want her to love life. And I think that with that, I think in order to have that, you have to have some greater purpose, right? Some goal that you're working toward, and also just like something that you really care about. And so that you're motivated by that. All right, let's pivot to talk about Every Smile Has a Story. I'm so thrilled. I was so excited to see the podcast. I truly was. I was looking and I'm like, I don't see anything on Cleft Awareness. I would see little episodes from places, and then I started thinking like, there has to be one, because I just thought it was just a lane that was wide open. There has to be something. And so I stumbled across Every Smile Has a Story. I can't remember exactly how, but yeah, I looked and I'm like, oh, there is one, thank God. And I think it's just important, right? Like when you're trying to do something in a market, is if you don't see any like someone else doing it, then it's kind of like a sign that this doesn't work. You want to see something out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or that nobody wants to hear this type of thing. And of course, I was so committed to getting this message out that I was going to do it anyway. But it was a relief to see that there was an audience for this, and that people needed this. And then after speaking with you and listening to the podcast, I'm like when I'm listening to something and I get chills, that's how I know that it's
You're so sweet.
That this is important and needed, and that it's resonating with people. And so you've done all this work in the Cleft community. What made you want to start your podcast?
This is my favorite question ever. I talked a little bit earlier about this little boy, and I can't say his name for like pace and confidentiality reasons, but this boy and I were playing during screening, and I had brought these little sticker books with me. And one of them was a Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head sticker sheet. And I gave it to him. He was so excited. And all of a sudden, he placed the earring sticker from the Mrs. Potato Head onto the lip of the potato head. And I looked to him. I was like, hey, buddy, what are you making? Because I was just so curious. And he looks at me. And we did, of course, have that language barrier. But he goes, me. It's like me. And I just stopped for a minute. And I was like, what? I'm confused. And then I was like, he just made a cleft lip onto this potato head. And in that moment, I truly realized the lack of cleft representation in our society. These children, they have no toys that look like them. They have no actors that are accurately portrayed with a facial difference. And if they are, they're the villain. They have little to no role models. And so I said, I want to create a platform, I didn't know what, that's going to help enhance this representation. And so I went home. This is bad to say, but I had never listened to a podcast before I started my own. So
I love that.
I was like, wait, what if I start a podcast? Podcasts are a very big trend right now. A lot of people do them. And I remember Googling like how to start a podcast, and there's no how-to guide. So I went on Amazon, I bought a podcast mic and had a dream. And I remember reaching out to one of my good friends that I had met through the Operation Smile conference with the Cleft. I was like, hey, I have this idea. Like, any chance you want to be a part of it? I remember it took me like 6 hours to figure out like how to get this episode going. Like, it was truly a learn and go process. But now it truly has become one of the most wonderful, I don't want to say projects, but opportunities that I've had. I've been able to connect with so many wonderful people. I've learned so much about the cleft community. I had never known what a NAM device was, or that there were special bottles that kids with clefts were fed with. And it just sometimes can get a little hard when maybe an episode doesn't do as well as you'd hoped, because your main goal is to reach large audiences. But that at the end of the day, if I can reach one person through an episode, then I have done my job. And it just truly has become such a wonderful community that I'm so thankful and grateful that I have been welcomed into.
Yeah, for sure. I think, as I've shared, having so many voices for parents to be able to listen to and to connect with is like really valuable and so important. We've mentioned earlier, like, you've had so many well-known guests as well on the podcast. What's your process like to like reaching out to people? Do they reach out to you? What is that?
It depends. Some of these people I have connected with personally. I've met through Operation Smile conferences. Some of the surgeons were ones that I've met in Paraguay, but a lot of it is through Instagram. I connect with one mom, and then I know the next 5 moms because they're all in this wonderful community. And the majority of time I will reach out, I'll stumble upon their page and I'll be like, oh my gosh, oh, this is so unique what they do. There's where they'll make care packages, or parents that have written books about clefts. There's even this young woman, Alicia, she started her own cleft awareness show to raise awareness. And so there's just learning that every story is unique. I've had critics be like, oh, there's just like parents with kids who are cleft affected on your page. And I said, yes, but they all have different experiences. And that's the beauty in this. When you're listening to these episodes, it's not the same. They're all going to bring something new. And then sometimes they'll not respond. And that's okay. That is completely okay. But at the end of the day, it's just so wonderful to connect with them.
I've reached out to people, of course, to be on the podcast to share their story, but I'm really particular about it. I don't reach out more than once. And the reason being, I want you to want to tell your story. Like
Exactly.
I'll reach out, and if I reach out a second time, it's probably because I forgot that I've already reached out. And because I recognize that as someone that is cleft affected, you may have some trauma from that. You may not want to relive those experiences. And talking about it, you'd be so surprised. So many cleft moms that I speak to, they are like, wow, like sharing this out loud is like bringing me to tears. I've never shared this. I've always like repressed these like feelings or these memories and stuff, and just saying them out loud makes me emotional. I've had that happen so many times on the podcast. And so I can only imagine like just reliving or retelling their stories. It can be tough. I empathize with people like that. And I don't want my intentions to be misconstrued. And yeah, that's why I only asked one time. So thank you so much, Cassidy, for being here with us. Just in closing, what is the biggest lesson you've learned along your journey?
That every person's story is unique. Working in the cleft community, you meet so many people who have, yes, gone through the same process, but everyone is going to have a different story, a different perspective, a different belief, a different image of the way things are happening. And that's the beauty in this, because getting to connect, to learn more, hear these people's stories, it's just the most incredible thing. And I am just so grateful to have the opportunity to do that and just be a small part of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cassidy, for being on.
Thank you.
I love the opportunity to speak with you again. And just thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.